You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on the CEO of Elo Health, Ari Tulla. Ari, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pat. Great to be here.
Great to have you on. Can you start out by telling us a little, what is Elo Health? What are you guys building over there?
Yeah, about maybe 15 years ago, I had an idea that food could be medicine and it could be helpful for people broadly. And about 4 years ago, I finally had a lull moment in my life, and I had a chance to compile a really awesome team together and try to tackle this area. So what Elo does, it is building today personalized nutrition products in a form of pills, powders, and gummies. And we are probably the first company in the world who has built a system where you can take blood biomarker data, you can take wearable device data like Apple Watch, Oura Ring, or Whoop, whatever, and then also health assessment data, and even medical record. And then we can turn that with AI into the right nutrition recommendation for you. And not only recommend you what to do, but also send you the custom product for you on a monthly basis. And every product we do today is custom built for you. So there's no inventory. We don't have products in the shelf. We make every product for you out of today 1 billion different combinations in the form of gummy, for example. And the gummies are 3D printed. The powder is hand packed in the back. The pills are built a pill pack out of hundreds of pills. So that's what we have done. And it's been really interesting to be in this new market and to really be leading the innovation in a category that is quite growing and exciting.
You have a long history in terms of starting businesses. You've had an incredible career. What was it that ultimately led to you deciding to start Elo Health?
For me, I was very lucky in the sense that I got to dabble first time building things. And I'm an entrepreneur, many people call me, but I'm a builder. I love building things. So as a kid, I was building Legos. I'm so happy to see my 10-year-old son today and my daughter is 6. They build every day. We have a workshop downstairs, wood shop for them to build at our house. And it's just like, I love that stuff. That's what I live for. So I got lucky enough, already in high school, I was building games and I was building worlds in the virtual world. Then in college, I was first employee of joined my roommates in the first startup building websites. This is like 98, 99, whatever. And then later I got to build many, many things in the tech. For me, I always wanted to also think about the why. We often talk about what you have done, but to me, it's almost more important to ask why we do what we do, because we only have a certain time to be on this planet. And it's an awesome planet. I mean, we need to think about that in a positive way. And so what is our mark? Like, why are we here? Like, why do we do things we do? And for me, for the last over 15 years, it really has been about focus on things that matter to me and my family and my worldview. And it really has been on focusing on healthcare and trying to make people healthier and try to build systems that can help people be thriving and be the best themselves. Because the problem is that if you get sick, that is the only thing that matters to you. If you have illness, it doesn't matter if there's a party tomorrow, if you are lying home and you're scared about your future, you might be even scared about, are you going to be here in a year or two? And those are the moments that completely change your outlook. Most of us luckily have never been sick. But now in a COVID, for example, I think many of us had family members, relatives who maybe died or had a really severe illness. And we actually saw that happening. And that's scary because we have hidden this sickness and death so far apart. We don't really see dead people anymore like we maybe saw 100 years ago. So we don't think about it. But now when you start to see that around you, you just think about, hey, why? Maybe I should do something about avoiding sickness. And that's kind of the root problem today in many ways in our Western society is that we medicate everything with medicine after we have been diagnosed of being sick. And many of the things we are being diagnosed, we could actually prevent by doing something before we are getting sick. Because sickness, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes decades to mature. And my whole focus is like, how could we do something that, prevent people getting sick in the first place? And I mean, it's a long story, but my own story is very much in the middle of this and why I do what I do. Because my wife had health issues. She had a thyroid tumor 2000, and there's a big tumor on her neck, and it was taken away. And luckily, it was not life-threatening, but it gave us a verdict that we can never have a family. And that sucks. You found your mate, you found your spouse. And then, of course, you would love to have family at some point. And hearing about you having a new baby, it's a kind of biggest joy of life to have a human being. You made it. It's a big deal in a way. So we spent about a decade on trying to get pregnant. And finally, we used food and nutrition to heal my wife's body, the autoimmune issues that she had. And it did work. And I became a big believer that there's something more powerful here than we most think about. And then once we get pregnant, we had to use IVF to get in vitro fertilization to be able to get pregnant. We had some issues of compatibility. And then we lost our first son. And that was like a long progress in our life that we spent thinking one thing and then it failed. And later we have 2 kids now who are thriving. They're 10 and 6 and it's all good. But that was the moment for me when we lost our son that I really wanted to dedicate 30 years of my life in building healthcare companies, not tech companies as I had done in the past. And really focus on trying to also give to the world and also invest in companies in this space. And it was a great decision. It's been a wonderful run for the last 15 years, built 3 companies in healthcare and actually be able to help people and see the impact that you do every day in your life.
That's an amazing story. And I'm so sorry that you and your wife had to go through that. But at the same, so grateful that you were able to take that experience and turn it into so much benefit for the world.
I think we all have stories. And I think I always want to tell people that, hey, like this happens a lot. Like, for example, like losing a baby or having miscarriage or whatnot happens. It happens a lot around us, but we don't talk about it. And I think it would be great that people would talk more open about these things because they do happen. And if you kind of keep it in you, it just eats you alive in the end. So it's better to maybe not talk to everybody about it like I do. Talk to your friends and talk to people that you care about.
Oh, absolutely. And it's with those experiences, to your point, everyone has extremely difficult things they have to overcome. And more often than not, we tend to shield a lot of that away and bury that and say, oh, it's better to just stay positive all the time. But to your point, for anyone else that's ever dealt with a miscarriage, anyone that's had to go through the experience of IVF, I can imagine it would be so empowering for them to be able to hear other people that have gone through that story and realize that they're not truly alone in that experience. Well, Ari, I do want to ask you a little more about Elo, because to me, so fascinating how you've built this business and really in particular, how you've built the following of your personal brand that I suspect has been leveraged to such a large degree around the business. When you started Elo, though, I'm curious, where did the first, let's say, $1,000 in sales ultimately come from? Whether it's $1,000, $5,000, I'm really curious about how did you get that initial traction for this brand new brand?
Yeah, I think you're right on the fact that, and I don't think I don't really have a big following in this circle per se, maybe more in the business side of it, but you almost have to be a priest if you work in this type of field, because it's a lot about belief and so forth. And I don't really want to be a priest. That's not really my goal in life. And there are many, many people who are doing it extremely well. Huberman is a one, Guido Attia is another one, Mark Hyman is a really good one. They are usually doctors or scientists who are trying to decipher the world around us in an understandable way. And of course, the podcasting that we do right now is a really interesting medium because I think we want to learn more. That's what we want to do as people. And the podcasting today, I don't know if the data is actually correct, but I heard yesterday that podcasting today in the US is consumed in more hours than the broadcast TV. Think about that for a second. If that's true, that's pretty unbelievable data point. I remember when I was at Nokia and we built the first podcast player, and it wasn't that long ago, and then nobody had heard about what podcast is. And it's now becoming this massive medium that the people are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and the presidents are being elected because of podcasting, which is kind of cool. How do we find the first customer? So for me, it's not so much about how do we get the first $1,000 or 10,000, but more about how do we find the core group of people who can work with you in the beginning to give you feedback and be this sort of trusted advisory team almost. So we were lucky enough to do the beginning at Elo when we raised $5 million, like a friends and family type of seed round. And we had about 120 people, many people I know well for a long time. They invested money and they became the first customers. And they invited their friends to become first. So we had like the first, let's say, 500 people were really these people that we almost knew who they are. And that was really powerful because they were able to give feedback, and often very rough feedback. Like, for example, we we mandated in the beginning that you have to do a blood test before you can get your supplements. So we built the Elo test kit, our labs and so forth. And in the end, we realized that was a very difficult funnel to build because think about it, you have to bleed before you can buy. I mean, that's a pretty hard, non-optimized funnel to sell something. But it gave us a lot of learning in the beginning. And I always recommend people to do that. The 100 people in the beginning who you can talk to are going to be more valuable than the 1,000 people you can find from TikTok who are random people.
Along those lines, I'm curious if there were any tricks that you learned along the way about how to solicit more candid feedback from those first handful, those first 100, 500 customers that you worked with. Because I think a lot of founders would say, hey, we've been able to get this great customer base in the early stages, but it's like pulling teeth, trying to get them to say anything like genuine, maybe read as anything negative about our product.
I think it's very hard. I mean, I talked to directly with 50 people, I think, in the beginning. I interviewed all of them for an hour. So that took a lot of time. And I documented, that was before we had like proper AI note takers. So documented all that really well. And that became kind of like this sort of binder almost that I was able to give to any employee who came in the marketing team. That, hey, here's a dialogue with some of the core personas that we have. And I picked women, men, more athletes, and had like all those different personas covered. And it wasn't perfect. It was a really good beginning because I was talking to them about like, how do you find information? Where do you go for news? Where do you buy products? How do you decide what to do in a family setting? Like a lot of those questions that are very difficult, you don't get them in organic feedback. You really have to tease out the information. And now when we have gone into more B2B2C setting where we work with more healthcare, now we are really struggling, I think, to get feedback because it's pretty difficult to get people who just bought your product to give you feedback. I mean, they're already busy in their life. They're like, I mean, I already bought your product. I don't want to talk to you. So I think that talking piece is a really interesting. But I think the one fundamental thing we did that was really powerful that helped us to figure out the real product market fit was the way when we did the blood testing in the beginning, and then we had an interview or a session with a dietitian. So we did, I don't know, a few thousand sessions where a dietitian talked an hour with our member after we had gotten their data, the wearable device data, the biomarker data, and the health assessment. And then they walked through that data with every person. And then there was a dialogue. And that dialogue was, of course, recorded for the quality control. And we were able to mine that information and understand from it, like what people want. We were not like, looking, of course, individual people, but more like these themes, like what are they asking about? And that was immensely valuable because how often you would record like, I don't know, 2,500 hours of dialogue between a healthcare provider, in this case, a dietitian, and a member in our case. And by the way, one thing that we did, which is really cool because we had built an AI-driven, so the whole Elo system works in a way that, we think about what we can collect from you, cholesterol or vitamin D or vitamin B or iron level or your weight or your activity level, your sleep, your recovery. So we have 250 different, assessment, we call them, about the person. Not everybody will have all of them. Some of them have 50, I have maybe 220. And then we take the assessments and our AI is then connected with all the research around those 250 verticals. So think about like your vitamin D, super simple example. Vitamin D is low. We have studies done that you need to give people a certain amount of vitamin D supplements or food to increase the vitamin D level. And that is kind of what we did on every one of these. So we have all the studies ever done on vitamin D that tells us how much vitamin D we need to give a person, a different type of person, to get the vitamin D up. It depends if you live in a northern hemisphere or you live in an equator, different amount. It depends if you are African American or if you are Caucasian, there's a different metabolism normally. So we have all the science built in the system automatically. And we did that for 250 different things. So that was a kind of the algorithm in a way. And then what we did when we had the dietitians talking to people, the algorithm spit out the plan, and then they go through the plan with the person. And then the person may say, I did the DNA analysis and I'm a poor metabolizer of vitamin D. I live in Ecuador or nearby, or in Florida. But, I need it still because of this. So there was this there was a tweak layer. What if a real person will then talk to somebody and what are the changes we need to make? So we took those changes and put them into the algorithm and it became much better over time. So today we don't really have any real people working anymore because the AI can do the whole thing.
That's so incredible. And hearing this, so this was several years before ChatGPT and some of the, we'll call it like the more mainstream AI tools really started to take over. That's incredible that you had the insight to do this so far in advance.
Well, it's also tricky because I always say that there are companies that were pre-AI or pre-LLM, and there are companies post-LLM. And we did a lot of work, I think, that could now probably be done automatically. Of course, in healthcare setting, you always have to validate it, and you have to do the work anyway. You can't just rely on ChatGPT to do it for you. But yeah, we did a lot of heavy lifting that was, kind of silly almost for small startup like Elo. But we learned a lot along the way, and now we know better how to use the new tools that are making our system, of course, way more efficient, way more faster. And we can, of course, now not only do a plan for you that will give you a pill pack or a 3D printed gummy vitamin or a powder in the back, but we also can give you narrative, and we can give a quotes that you can talk to. So that is, of course, really, really powerful, because if you can talk to, and this is not live really yet in a way I want to have it live, but think about it, you could talk to chatbot, a dietitian that has all your data in the fingertips of the AI. It is unbelievably good. We have that internally working already, and how good it is, like, mind-boggling. I can ask it to give me, we talked about climbing before, we do both that, and I can ask every week, like, my training plan, and it can alter that plan in real time based on my wearable device data, for example, my recovery data and my notes. So it's better than the quotes would be. And it can also give me my meal plan. It can give me my recovery plan. You can ask it to give you a plan for how to hydrate based on the data what I have about myself on triathlon, for example. And it will be better than almost any coach. So it is mind-boggling how good it is. And we're going to see a lot of companies, I think, who can bring in your own health data from like Apple Health and then make it into an AI coach that can help you to perform better or be healthier.
And this is so exciting hearing, even just the progression that humans have made, call it in the past 50 years, let's say, in terms of expanding lifespans, and hearing what you're doing already a couple years into LLM starting to become more mainstream to really elongate lifespans, get people to live healthier lifestyles. It's going to be so exciting to see what happens with that in the next 5-10 years.
Maybe I double click there. One point that I want to be very specific, because I'm involved in a lot of different things now that we talk about this broad wellness, health, longevity space. And people will call me biohacker for 20 years, and I don't like the term, but maybe I am. So anyway, I've been testing every possible thing you can do to your health. And I'm 46 now, so I'm already like old athlete in a way I like to call it. But I try to perform still at a pretty high level. And I think we want to be very specific, and I want to be specific about health span, lifespan. Lifespan is basically the day you die. Health span is the amount of good years you have before you die, or you succumb into illness in a way that you're going to be not living a life like you would like to live your life. So we have a bigger and bigger gap every day between the how long we're going to die before, how long we live before we die, and how many good years we have. Because most people are now getting chronically ill before they're 50. And that life after it can be very difficult. It has to be medicated. You may be overweight, obese even. And that is a tough thing to have. So what we really are looking to do today is how do we optimize the health span? I don't think we have anything today in the world, in science or in the labs, that we can expand our life over 100 years. We have people who have lived 120 years today. We also had people who lived 120 years, maybe 1,000 years ago. So we haven't really given a day more of life to humankind, but we have on average been able to expand us to be living roughly 80 years old. We used to live 40 years, 1,000 years old. 2,000 years ago, there were people, senators in Greece, Athens, who were living 90 years old already. But most people lived up to 40. But now we can all live up to 80 more or less. But we don't know yet what to do to go to 125, to 150, to 200. We will find it out, I think, soon. And the AI, I think, will play a crucial role in that. We need to be able to decipher the human health, and I call it like the ultimate theory of human health. We have an ultimate theory of universe. That's what Stephen Hawking and others have been working for a long time. We know more about the black holes than we know why we don't live longer. So we have a lot to uncover, but the AI, I believe, can help us to do that. And I'm optimistic that in the next 50 years, we will find ways to expand our life expectancy, lifespan into 125. And maybe most of us might live over 100 who are born right now. So those are just a couple of things I want to always talk about, because people have this sort of notion that, we will live 200 years old. We have no idea how to do that. We know nothing about it, but we can likely live to 100, most of us, in the next 50 years.
Absolutely. So along those lines, I'm curious to hear your views on someone like Brian Johnson, who I'm oversimplifying, and I suspect you're a lot more knowledgeable about him than I am, but I would describe him as like the guy who has made it his life's mission to never die. Do you see potential for him to succeed in that route? Or do you think that science still has so much further to go? I guess I'll step back. I'd love to hear your views on what he's doing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who look at him and say that he's crazy. I was at his conference when he did the one Don't Die Summit here a month and a half ago, I think. And I talked to him maybe briefly a couple of times, but I really like what he's doing from the perspective that he's putting himself out there. He's truly putting himself out there. He's truly openly sharing the data that he has done, what has worked for him and what hasn't. And it's an N01, of course. We can't deduct from N01 anything. But the fact that he's doing it will inspire other people to do it. And I think that in this space of longevity, it is going to be very difficult to study it, because you can study mice and you can study flies and stuff like that, fruit flies. But some of these entities, they live a week or a month. So you can speed up it and see it in a year, multiple generations. Humans live, like I said, 85 years old. Pat, I'm going to help you with the latest things we can do. Well, we're going to know whether it helped in about 50 years from now. So it's a very slow cycle of science evolution. So we need to kind of really model this out with AI and simulate it rather than wait until we see if it worked, because otherwise we were going to wait for 1,000 years because the cycling is so short. And I think not dying, I love the way he's putting it in a way that he's kind of pushing people to think this. I don't think he thinks he will live forever. I think if we have some people living forever, they will likely be uploaded to an AI. You can probably build an LLM model or a model of you that can live forever until somebody deletes it. Like I'm building my own LLM right now with all the things I know and, what I have learned. And it will likely be like me in a year or two. And then the question is like, what if we can call my mom and act like me and she won't know it's not me? I don't know. Is that a real entity or is that not me? So that it will likely happen much faster than us getting people call us meat sacks. Meat sack is not very good entity. Like you put meat in the fridge, it will be bad in 2 weeks. So, the meat sack is not a very effective way of eternal life because it's very difficult to make the skin last for too long.
And as a sidebar, how wild is it to think that, 5 years after Black Mirror released that episode where you were able to converse with that person who had died, that we're actually reaching a point where we're coming so close to doing that now?
It's happening right now. So, and there's companies who are now, and I think there was Anderson Horowitz, or I think they posted like, what are the theses for the next year for them? And I think this was one of the theses. It's like AI mining your knowledge base, like having your private own knowledge base. And for example, think about it. You can go to Apple now and you have the new photo search. You can put fun moments in Lake Tahoe in the last decade. And we'll look at you and you are smiling and your family is smiling, and then it can pick those photos. So that is kind of knowledge mining. What if I can do, I have about 2 million emails stored from different companies in one server. I'm waiting to be able to mine those emails. Not for the finding the email, but learning how has my communication style evolved over time, and can that AI learn my communication style by using the 2 million emails as a learning vehicle? Or go look at all my podcasts or all my things I'm using over the years, and then kind of become me. And I think that's very close, maybe a year away. And that'll be really cool because then I don't need to do emails anymore. Well, I might live longer because I'm not spending hands down writing emails every day.
Oh, man. Well, and even nowadays, I think about Gmail, and there are so many times that I'll start to type out an email and Gmail will just predict what the rest of the sentence is. And then I'm still in that like old school mindset where I'll see that and I'm like, oh, I have to say something different. The machines have figured out what I was going to say. I'm being too repetitive. But yeah, if Gmail is able to do it at this point, having dedicated companies that are going to filter through all those data points, I agree. I would love it if I could set up an LLM that was able to answer emails on my behalf. I could spend more time climbing and doing more fun stuff. That'd be awesome. Maybe I could catch up to your V10 climbing level, but I don't know. I'll probably need a few extra years for that. Well, awesome, Ari. Well, going back to, let's say broadly, the customer acquisition side of things, you had shared roughly 500, like friends and family, and maybe a 1 degree extension of that, got involved in the early seed round and really became the initial customers. and really became like such an amazing source of data. I'm curious, once you had that initial, call it information set, how did you really go about expanding beyond those 500 people and building in, call it like that second grouping of sales to expand Elo from there?
Yeah, we took a couple different playbooks. So one was that we didn't want to go and dive deep into, this is a few years ago. Apple had done their modification of the privacy side, and the tracking became more difficult, meaning that the Meta, all platforms got less appetizing in a way. They didn't convert at the same level. They couldn't do the same specificity of the targeting, and that meant higher CAC. It meant poorer targeting, meant lower LTV. So we wanted to go like, can we build more like a foundational assets that can help us forever? And we spent from the very beginning, after the seed round, we spent some money on content. We started to write 2 or 3 or 4 long posts every week and put it in our blog. You can find it on elo.health, and there's articles and Q&As type of stuff. And the idea was, and we work with old friend Derek Flanrice, who had built a company called Greatest. And Greatest was sold to Healthline, and it was basically this sort of a company that developed content for the millennials, health content, like a WebMD for the millennials. And they amassed, 50 million users or something like that. So it's all based on content, a media company. And then he took the playbook and he helped multiple companies do the same thing. And we were one of the companies that he came in and helped. So the idea was to create the best content on the internet, like just the best content, like any topic that you do, you build the best content that you have. And you always make the content to be, if it's healthcare or specific scientific content, you don't only write it, but you also have it reviewed by an expert, like a doctor, a dietitian, nurse, or something like that. We did that, and we really started to write this long piece of content, the best hydration for cyclists, or best nutrition for runners who run every day for the ligaments or something like that. Like very specific topics. And then we also did Q&A that is really quite powerful, where you have these shorter articles that are about specific topic to tackle the Google's also asked areas. So if you go to Google today, you have your key level things and then also relevant. So we tackled those, and we wrote like a couple thousand of those small answers. And that was really quite powerful. So fairly quickly, in a year and a half, I think we went from 0 traffic organic to around 100,000 uniques a month coming to our website. And these were very specific articles. They were not like, you write about how to do like a good recipe for Thanksgiving, but that was more like very specific to our audience. And that became a really nice loop. And the problem was that we never really have gotten really good at converting the traffic into sales. And that I think has been a challenge. And then of course, once we had the content, we started then also dabble into a little bit TikTok, Meta, and also influencers. And I think we learned that I think the best way to do this is really the influencer mix with content. And I think we kind of failed to build the influencer network really properly, because you have to probably get 1,000 people like this or mid-tier, and then maybe a couple people who are really like high-end influencers. And we work with some people that are quite notable in the athletic space, and some of them were really impactful. But in the end, we were not able to kind of build that sort of a whole engine that you have 1,000 people always sharing to right audiences. And I think our problem at Elo has been a bit that we are a bit too living in the future, because we built this thing that is very new. And I think this whole idea that we actually call the nutrition that we built smart nutrition. And it's kind of like a smartphone or smart watch or smart home, smart like Tesla. The idea is that it's always this sort of alive thing. And I don't think people are looking for that yet. They're looking for a goal specific type of nutrition product. And in the last year and a half, we've been really moving Elo more from that fully personalized, it can be anything for everyone, to more very specific goal-oriented way, because that made more sense. And it was more easy to find an audience and target. Because if I'm smart nutrition that can be anything out of billion combinations, are we anything really for anyone? How do you then cling on something? How do you tell a story about it? We can get a lot of clicks to the website by telling that we can fully personalize things based on your blood work. That's freaking cool. People want to learn more, but then they see the price tag, they see the inconvenience of needing to kind of go through the data, and they're like, maybe I'll just click a button and buy multivitamin. That was, I think, the challenge we have been facing quite a bit.
A big part of what I'm hearing is you've been able to get traffic to the site, and Elo's not a small brand by any means. You guys have had a ton of success, but in order to reach that next tier, it sounds like the next piece of the equation that you're really trying to figure out is how do we not only get this traffic, but how do we really convert this traffic to a much higher degree? Do you have any theories about what the solution is, or have you found any success as you've been struggling through that particular pain point?
Yeah, it kind of boils down a little bit on my past. And I started a company called Better Doctor. And that was the first idea. We had really hard time finding a doctor when we had health issues with my wife. And possibly because of maybe having the wrong doctor, we lost our son. So I felt that it's a very difficult environment when you are sick, you are at your weakest, and you have to find a doctor who can take care of you. And there are really brilliant doctors out there. I'm not throwing the doctors out in a sense, but I wanted to build something that would be helping people to find a doctor when they need help. And that's a very meaningful thing, I think. And we had a big problem in our end. We talked to maybe 50 to 60, 70 different doctors over the years. And we built a system, and we had 20 million users a year. It was way bigger than what Elo is today. And some months we had millions of people. So we built this system that was bringing a lot of value to people. We were maybe the fourth biggest doctor finder in the web. And we had an app that was promoted by Apple for many years in a row. We were top of the list in the health category for a long time. So that was really meaningful, but we couldn't really find a way to monetize it. And in the end, we realized that this is not the company we need to build. We want to be more like a data platform for the industry. And that was 2012. We had raised a lot of money from NEA and others, the top VCs in the world, because we had a lot of traction, a lot of momentum. So we found out that the B2B market for us was much more understandable, and the impact can be much higher than it was ever by building our own brand. And over the years, Better Doctor became part of a bigger company, and now we power 200 million people who find for doctor every year. We power the doctor data, we power the doctor networks. We are a big company now, almost 1,000 people. So that was kind of interesting that became the real thing. And I think that playbook has been with me ever since. And it was a surprise to me because the company turned out to be a totally different company than I started in the beginning. And the impact was way greater than it ever could have been by doing what I did, like an open table for doctors. And we started Elo in a way, always in a point that we need to validate to us, our investors, and to the market and our partners that we can do something of impactful. And we have done now, 10,000 people who we've been impacting their blood biomarkers in a positive way by nutrition, by coaching, by lifestyle change. So I have that data that I'm now taking to the market, and I'm asking what do you think about this? And many people are like, wow, that's something that nobody has seen before. It's very credible. So that led us into really finding this market that what if we at Elo, we are becoming not just a brand of really cool longevity, performance, nutrition, but what if we become a brand that becomes a platform that can power other people also who want to launch products like this? And many people don't know. And I mean, to me, it's I want to go to the data source. I want to go to doctors. I want to go to places where people already are. There's a trusted brand with a trusted audience, and then giving that company a power to build a nutrition component into their mix. That has become really the key driver for Elo today. And I think we can probably talk about this a little bit. We're right now launching and announcing that this new brand that we've been helping to create together with fertility clinics. So it's called Luminary Vitamins. So it's kind of using the same learnings that we have had over the years, and now taking that into a new market of in vitro fertilization, IVF, and giving people nutrition that can really help them to get where they want to be, that is having a family. And that was what we did in my family. We made 3 kids altogether. 2 are here today with IVF. And I'm so grateful for the science and the doctors who were helping us to do that. We could have never have a family otherwise. So now working in that field myself and helping these big clinics and many of these doctors to provide a better product for the patient has been really meaningful. And that is one example, I think, of a collaboration that you can use a platform like Elo to build something very new, very innovative, very science-based and impactful for the market.
That's brilliant, Ari. And I know this is going in a very different direction, but I know we're coming up a little bit on time, and I really wanted to ask you about LLMs and SEO, because we started to touch on this before we started recording. Obviously, content SEO have been huge in terms of building the Elo brand. And you mentioned conversion-wise, maybe you haven't been able to connect the dots 100% yet, but in terms of building brand awareness, I'm so curious, what is it that you've been doing to optimize for LLMs and SEO with the content that you've been creating?
Yeah, I think this is something that everybody need to and learn. I don't think we have a playbook. None of us really know exactly how are the LLMs trained, what the content is from. But I bet many of us are building here new companies who listen or are running marketing campaigns for newer companies. And you go to your favorite LLM and you do a query, it does not even know you. And that kind of sucks because, the data might be 2 years old. And if you were lost 2 years past, you are not around. The LLM does not know who you are. And that's not the awesome place to be. So the question is here, like, what do we need to do to create content that your company can leverage the benefit of being nimble and new and small or whatever and get the benefit out of that? Because the big guys may not do that. So, of course, you need to create press. You need to create reviews of your products. You need to create momentum on that level. You probably need to create some social momentum as well. I think Reddit is, of course, a brilliant place to be because I bet almost all the LLMs have Reddit content in it. And you can feel the Redditness in some of the stuff you get out of them. And then I think one thing that we did at Elo that I think I'm happy to share it's maybe not a hack, it's more like a tactic. We're creating these short answers because, like I said, to win SEO and to win a content game, you want to create the best content on the web. If you do that, you will always win. It may take a while. It never happens overnight. It will take a year or two. But if you do that consistently, you will win. Or you run a podcast. Don't stop at the 10 to 200. If you do videos on YouTube, don't stop at the 10 to 200 because in the end, you will win. There's more and more people every day consuming content. And also, if it's human-created content, you can use AI to create the frames and stuff, but have real people to modify the content, make it amazing, because we want to read that stuff. And then the LLMs and the Googles of the world, they need more content that is created by humans, verifiable, created by humans. They will love that. More than half the content today is created by AI, by the way. More than half the content today is created by AI today. Think about that for a second. You create great content by humans, you're going to be appreciated. You won't be New York Times. And then the hacks are like this, maybe shorter things. Think about how you ask things on the ChatGPT or whatever you use. You ask these like 5 to 7 word questions. What if you could answer some of those with your content in your specific area that you have credibility like nobody else? Those are some of the ideas that I think maybe spur your imagination. And there are many people now writing their own playbook, what to do, how to do it. And we did that at Elo as well. It's not public. I don't think anyone knows, but it's right time now to think about it. Because if you do it well, I mean, as an example, my wife, she's today working in this small field of KonMari consulting. Like Marie Kondo is this organizer, 70 from Japan, and she's helping people to do that thing. And you ask now in ChatGPT, who is the best Marie Kondo organizer in the Bay Area for me? My wife is the number one. That's kind of cool, right? And I mean, it's a one-person business, but by doing some stuff that happened, and that may be a big deal in the long term when everybody goes to there.
And I'll echo everything you said there. And the only other 2 points I'll add in about LLMs, and to your point, a lot of this is theoretical at this point. I don't think I've seen any legitimate sources that have said based on data, like, hey, here's how LLMs are calculating what is the top business they recommend. But there's a lot of data points that we can look towards to get a good suggestion of what it might be. The 2 other elements I'll add in, though, are 1, nuance matters more than ever in terms of SEO and in terms of getting visibility from any of these AI models. The more you can clarify your positioning as an expert to stand out above all that other AI generated content, the more likely you are to be that featured brand that actually does show up. The second thing too, and I think your wife's business is a great example here, narrowing your positioning and making that positioning as prevalent as possible across all of these other data sets that LLMs are looking to. You mentioned the example of Reddit. If you're working in the business sector, LinkedIn, another great platform, looking at something like X, formerly Twitter, sharing information about your brand on all these other major publications wherever you can, and ultimately giving a lot of different data points so that any LLM can say, okay, it's very clear that this person or this business does this very narrowly focused thing. So if someone does that long search of 5, 7, 8 words, they're able to look at it and say, oh, well, this one brand is already positioning themselves in all these different places as the expert in this specific subject matter. they're obviously the ones we should be recommending.
100%. And I think the review base is pretty key. I think Amazon reviews, Google reviews. At the Better Doctor, we built a side business in one point. We had a lot of doctors who wanted to have online reputation. So we built them a website. I think we did a few hundred clinics, and we built them the presence and ability to book online and all these things. And this is a decade ago, maybe 13 years ago now when it started. And we have a number of doctors who are still customers of that business. And I think there's one urologist in the Bay Area who has more than 450 reviews on Google. No other urologist in the country. There's a reason, because people don't necessarily want to give a review for somebody like that. Nobody has more than 100. And he is the number one search wherever you search. And that value is immense, like we know. You are number one on Google Maps. That's a pretty powerful thing.
So Ari, I want to ask very broadly, any parting thoughts you want to leave to the early stage founders, early stage, let's say executives at e-com businesses, just to help them to be 10% better at what they're already doing before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I've done quite a few things in the last plus 20 years, and I found it really difficult now to build a D2C business. I think it's really hard, and there are ways to do it, but to be something like what Elo is, where you don't have a product you can put in a shelf. You can't go retail because all custom made. You can't go to Amazon because all custom made. So we were kind of inhibited in a way that we couldn't play the two games that make sense. Distribution in a specific retail can be working always. Amazon is unbelievable. It works really well today. We couldn't go there. So we had to be like a pure digital D2C. And it is bloody difficult. So I would definitely look at the opportunities on how can you leverage Amazon better and play there, because that platform, I know many companies that I'm involved, otherwise, they have gone to Amazon and they've seen unbelievable growth in the last few years because people go to Amazon to buy stuff. And yes, it's going to be difficult, scary, crowded, but it is still the place I think more and more people will buy. And think about when the AI models now, what we talked about, are becoming more prevalent. And you can go to look at China, you can look at other countries in Asia, where in Japan as well, social commerce is completely taking over. And we maybe have a TikTok store here, but the WeChat and all this, how it works, it is very different today. So I think I'm more likely to buy on an LLM or a WhatsApp or Instagram chat or TikTok than I will be buying on random website. So random website is 1 out of a trillion websites or whatever today. But if you are living in an Amazon or you are living in this social commerce, I think that is the new thing we need to think about. And the US is very behind today of other countries in Asia that are doing this better. And I see that the same will apply here. We will like to talk to and think about chatbot. How can a chatbot be selling for you? You have a support team who's talking to 5 people today. Maybe you automated it. What if you could turn every like in social or every interaction in social into a sales call? That will be really cool. And you can do it today with the new models.
So for listeners who want to get in touch with you, who maybe want to follow you on social or want to learn more about Elo or Luminary, where should they go to get in touch?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. I'm mainly on LinkedIn. Just find me on LinkedIn. I'm posting there quite a bit. Elo is on every social. And I think Luminary Vitamins, we just opened like last week in Instagram. So that's one place we are now in. But it's a bit different because we are very medicinal. So we are taking steps a bit slower there. And yeah, also Elo.health is the website, and luminaryvitamins.com is a website for the fertility.
And listeners, check out the show notes. We'll include links to all this and how to find Ari, Luminary, and Elo all on social as well. Once again, everyone, this is Ari Tulla, the CEO over at Elo Health. Ari, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.